Okay, so if you remember, the trajectory of formation of world economic system started with bipoles of medieval economic system with the northern and southern pole, and the meeting point between these poles was Fairs of Champagne. This is the first phase. The second phase are crisis of 14th century, the age of Black Death. The third one, age of Venice. The fourth one, age of Antwerp. The fifth one, age of Genoa. And we interrupt in the last period, age of Amsterdam. I spoke about the formation of Netherlands, formation of dominance of Amsterdam, but the most important chapter in the context of world economic system are conquering the global network of the trade. And almost this was the last slide. This is the date of formation of United Provinces, because on the time was a republic. Recently a kingdom. The Netherlands is a kingdom, but it's transformed on the time of Napoleonic Wars. Before that, it was a republic. Sorry. And look at the problem of controlling and checking and conquering of global economic system. On that time had two large commercial and trading network, Asian trading network and American trading network. In the last lecture I spoke mostly about the Asian trading network. This was the monopoly of Portuguese Empire, and the Portuguese would like to save a secret of voyage trajectory to Indian Ocean. And on the coast of African continent organize a checking point, stopping and defense against rivals. Rivals, it's a Spanish rivals, British rivals, and the Dutch rivals. On this situation, like recently in the global economy, used espionage, it's a spying. Two spies discovered a trajectory of sailing trajectory around the African coast. Jan van Lieshoten and Cornelius Houtman, close to the prison in Lisbon, and one trader from Rotterdam paid for them. How the name is? It was a hostage somehow, and paid the price, and both of these spies traveled back to the Netherlands. Jan van Lieshoten spent more than 1 decade, more than 10 years in the prison, no good condition, but wrote down his memories. But Cornelius Houtman spent only 2 years in the prison, therefore he's more active, more ambitious, organized a stock company, traveling back and testing the trajectory to the trade of Indian Ocean. And the most important, as I mentioned in the last week, the crucial decision of the Cornelius Houtman discover a new way to the island, Spice Island of Indian Ocean. Not on the channel between Madagascar and African continent, not to the direction of India, but to the direction of Indonesia. This became the highway of colonial network of Dutch Republic. Sailed to Indonesia and founded in the last slide of last lecture was Batavia, recently named Jakarta. It was a very small and outnumbered at 5,000 dwellers, recently more than 20 million living in Jakarta. And the most important actor of Asian trade was the Dutch East Indian Company, the original Dutch name Verenigde Oost-Indische Company. And generally in the international literature using a Dutch name. Why? Because the English East India Company founded 2 years before foundation of the Dutch East India Company. And very ambitious and very powerful, the background of Dutch East India Company. Look at the stock behind the enterprise. It's 64 ton of gold. This is the stock of background, financial background, and the staff of Dutch East India Company changed around 10,000 employees, and the vessels 160 with 8,000 sailors. Unbelievable large operation, and the interest rate changed between 20 to 40%. It's very high. Compare recently the benefit in a bank deposit recently changed around 5 and 10%. And it's happened in the 17th century. Generally, the rate of benefit much lower in the normal trading and financial operation. And very special, a lot of specialty, peculiarity in the Dutch capitalism. One of the most important, the colonial empire constructed by a private company. Any other, look at Spain, look at England, look at France, look at Belgium. Each of them, the majority, it was a state operation. A state operation. Behind the colonizer were a state, a homeland. In this case, a private company organized whole of the colonial operation, but very important to mention, a stockholder was a state, but only one vote behind the other stockholders. It was a great conflict inside of the private company, which strategy necessary to apply. And finally, a Dutch private company used a Phoenician model. I remember I spoke about. Which is the Phoenician model? You know, a Phoenician, it's lived and organized a colonial empire in antiquity. Founded Byblos, Tyros, Sidon on the coast of Near East, and his colony was a Carthage, very important rival of Roman Empire. A Phoenician introduced, for example, the money, the using of money. Okay, what mean the Phoenician model? A Phoenician model mean no apply a classical colonization, a state building like applied English colonizer in northern part of America, or the Spanish colonizer in central and southern part of America. No, only organized a spider network and controlled only the most important market, and generally organized like a spider network, a spider web. Why so efficient? Because construct a state building is very expensive. Necessary to organize, transport the colonizer, transport the peasant, transport the employees, transport the soldier, and organize a logistical background. It's in this case not necessary. Only checking the market, checking the fare of spice in Ceylon, in India, in Japan, in coastal area of Africa. Not necessary control, checking whole of large area. Only one exception there is in the Dutch colony. It's located to southern part of Africa. Sorry, it's named Afrikaans or Boer colony and colonizer. Any other area, only the local agency located in the Asian world and function excellent manner. Why? Because as Fernand Braudel named, Asian trade, it's a plein du monde. It's very high density of population. Therefore, in the normal situation, intensity of the trade, it's very high. And somehow a Dutch trader only checked the most important crossroads of the trade and earn the money, the profit of the trade. It's a spider model. It's a spider network. This is the network of the Dutch colony and the trading agencies. You can follow, generally occupied a Portuguese empire, the agencies of Portuguese empire. And there was inside of the Dutch East India Company a conflict. Which direction necessary to develop the colony? To the state building or to the spider Phoenician model? The most important actor, the most important supporter of the classical state building colonization was Jan Pieterszoon Koen, but it was a problem. It's very expensive. Construct whole of the colonial society, and therefore, too short period was able to organize and direct Dutch East India Company. And very important innovation of the Dutch people and the Dutch trader in the Indian Ocean, that very high profit might be produced in the local trade, because India, for example, consumed a double quantity of spice compared with Europe. Therefore, monopolized not only the European trade between Indian Ocean and Europe, but the local trade around India too. And which was the most important devices of making a monopoly are firearms and the cannons and the very powerful warships of the East India Company. Okay, this was the last slide, according to memories, demonstrate well which huge construction was a Dutch, partly trading, partly war ships. And this is the map of Batavia. It's comparable a recent construction of Jakarta, which is except the downtown. Any other part of Jakarta is very confused, constructed city, and like, for example, growing, it's not the good comparison, but growing like a cancer, it's unstoppable. Okay, it's a classical. Batavia was a very tiny settlement with 5,000 settlers. Okay, Asian trade monopolized by Dutch trader and produced very high rate of benefit, 20 to 40%. And this is the golden age in the history of Dutch Republic, United Provinces. Look at the other one. Asian trade occupied and monopolized. Look at the American trade. Not by chance used the same model, the spider model. Founded 1621, a Dutch West India Company. A Dutch West India Company was almost the same construction like East India Company. West and East India used until the 19th century because not so popular America. Almost everybody know, even in the 17th century, there's a new continent, but from historical heritage saved the former name, West Indies. West Indies was a real Asia, and the East India was America. It's a synonym of America, saved until the 19th century. In the 19th century, mainly geographer cancelled in the public use the term of East India or West India. It's simplified, it's America. Okay, founded a similar company, private company, like the East India Company. But the project of American project didn't work. Why? Because compared with Asia, America was an empty world, very low density of population. In consequence of low density of population, not so high activity, trading activity. Therefore, the classical Phoenician spider model, it take into vacuum, no trading, no local trade, without investment. Therefore, the model which produced high profit almost continuously in the 17th century, it's brought down. Try to conquer the coastal area in the Portuguese Brazil, the coastal area of Southern America, but it's failed. a lot of times try to reconstruct the project of West India Company by a state of United Provinces, but it's failed. Because the model, the classical model which applied in Asia, which was the most important innovation of Dutch Republic in America, didn't work. But necessary to mention, probably you know, one of the most famous settlement of the world, of the America, New York, founded by Dutch colonizer. Original name was Nieuw Amsterdam, and after the war between England and Dutch Republic conquered and changed in consequence of peace treaty of Breda, received English kingdom and renamed to New York. But a famous district of New York, Harlem, saved the name of one Dutch city near to Amsterdam. Therefore, New Amsterdam was a predecessor of New York. Okay, why no able to save the central position by United Provinces, Dutch Republic? Basically, a dimension, a spatial and population dimension. Look at the comparison. United Provinces, whole of the population, 2 million. It's quite low number for ambitious colonizing Asian and American continent. The second one, population of Amsterdam, 200,000. It's large dimension. On the same time, the highest level of population, for example, in Hungary was around 20,000. Look at the difference between, for example, Central European urbanization and the Western European urbanization. Look at England. England, much larger the population. Size of England is a little bit larger than recent Hungary, and calculated and reckoned 6 million. It's threefold larger compared with the Netherlands. But London, the population is 500,000, like a voter head on the kingdom. It's a voter head. Not by chance, the relation a little bit same, which happened in the case of the Netherlands, but the dimension threefold larger. France, 70 million. This is the weakness of France. Very large population, and very large country. We are looking at the comparison, a little bit the same, which happened in the 20th century with Russia. In the 17th century was a similar dimension than Russia in the 20th century. So large that no chance for direction efficiently from one core area. France, very large. And in the 17th century technology, it's not possible direct efficiently. Because, for example, one order sent from Paris to Marseille and back, it's 2 months. No chance for efficient direction. And very important to mention Sweden. Why? Because Sweden increased step by step and became a local power of Baltic area. You remember, why so important the Baltic area? Because the position, a little bit similar, like a state of Arabian Peninsula recently, checking majority of usable fossil fuel. On the time, the position of the fossil fuel was tar, used insulation of body of ships, and the timber material. Moreover, the cereals. Therefore, a local power, Sweden, became a rival of Dutch Republic on the Baltic Sea, which is a core area of raw material, making ships for shipbuilding and using and making and trading staple foods. Okay, Baltic lands in the 17th century. Okay, no over today's lecture because it was very comfortable overing for half year, but checking a new subject. The next item, after the age of golden age of Dutch Republic, look at who are and which geographical area, which state able to replace to the position of the Dutch Republic. We are over age of Amsterdam. Why became a weak for the core area, for the leading city position? The first, which I try to demonstrate, it's a very moderate human and political financial power, because it's a small country. If at the beginning of last lecture I spoke about size of the Netherlands, half of recent Hungary, but very surprising that in Netherlands nobody knows it's a small country. Because somebody somehow on the brain decide and on the brain turn that we imagine us, it's a small country, small nation, or not. It's a half than Hungary. But nobody thinking about it's a small country. Moreover, taking example from the modern time, I like the football, it's possible I mentioned for you. And Netherlands, in the last decades, lost 3 finals of World Championship. Free. The first one against Germany, the second one against Argentina, and the last one against Spain. Free. And nobody panicked. Hungary and the Hungarian national team lost the final 1954. It's happened half century before. And the public opinion, no over, and repeat time by time. We lost the fight. Dutch Republic, not Dutch Republic because recently kingdom, Netherlands, the Dutch lost 3 and construct the new national team for winning the following World Cup final. Okay, turn back to the story. We are over. The first one, it's a moderate natural and financial and population sources. And the second one, I told to you, there are some very reliable indicator of decline. For example, intoleration. It's important indicator of decline. And other indicator of decline, luxury consummation. A luxury consummation appear in some community, it's indicator of low civilization level or decline of the economic and social and general capacity of local society. And in Dutch Republic, so rich that proliferate the luxury consummation. It's not good for the economic investment, economic behavior, and so on, financial behavior. If somebody spend the money for useless products. Okay, look at the next chapter of formation of a world economic system. We are over a real city-state. Amsterdam was a border case if we are approaching to the problem of the city-state. It's not a real territorial state, so small and so efficiently dominate the light of the Dutch Republic. But look at a real territorial state, a real national market. A basic question of us, how the economic coherence achieved with a given political unit. If we are looking at the history of Middle Ages, state of Middle Ages and state of early modern time, it was by chance. For example, if we are looking at the 100 Years' War between England and France, it was an open question because large area of France was under direction of English king. If English king and the English kingdom able to won the 100 Years war, it's possible the political boundary might be basically different. And the trajectory of development of English kingdom and the French kingdom might be developed from other and different direction. Therefore, the history, it's an open question. It's an open question. Might be other, for example, scenario in the past. And the national market, national state and the territorial state depend on by chance. For example, a marriage, a successful or unsuccessful military operation. It's a lot of casual events. And how able to organize a territory which made by casual events homogenized for economic unity, because this was the ambition of modern state. Look at the story. Basically, if we are looking at the history of national state, it organized not a homogenized area. For example, in the Hungarian history, had a lot of great regions. For example, Hungarian plain, for example, Transylvania, for example, Highland, Transdanubia. It's independent market network developed and how try to homogenize the Hungarian state and the Hungarian kingdom. The second one, basically the homogenization was ambition of political leader. A political leader of territorial or later the national state, and not by chance, the chance for organizing a homogenized national state was the best on the core area of a global world system. Okay, the first step, look at the spatial hierarchy before the national state. It's possible, I told to you, the national state and the nationalism, it's quite a new innovation. Before the late 18th century, a state didn't organize according to same and the similar culture and the language. It was empire. No importance of the common culture and the common language. Why? Because the most important rupture in the society were and directed a social status. One category was a peasant, other category a citizenship and citizenry, and the third one a nobility. If somebody was born as peasant or bourgeois or nobleman, basically determined the trajectory of his and her life. And if somebody, for example, traveled from Spain to Hungary, saved the social status. If was a peasant on Spain, became a peasant in Hungary. If nobleman in Spain, nobleman, this was the change of currency, change of currency, a social change of status. Therefore, the rupture, the most important guiding force in the society was the social status. But approaching French Revolution, France, it's basically an homogenized country. In the southern part of the France, nobody spoke. From the south of Loire, River Loire, nobody able to communicate in French language. It's a new Latin language spoken in the southern France, but no French. And how homogenized France, a French population, to French language, in consequence of administration, because official language was the French, and army. Huge number of people served under the flag of French king, 500,000 or 1 million soldiers served, and which is the ordering language is a French. Therefore, century by century before appearance of nationalism, the local minorities homogenized. Was the language. But at the end of 18th century, on the time of French Revolution, appeared a new technology, if we are using the French English term, a new technology of unification of the country. new technology was the nationalism. It's efficient technology. How we can organize, it's a technological approach to the nationalism, how we can organize a large community to the solidarity. Necessary to find a common level. A common level. We are the common level. The common history, not by chance, the most important actor of the formation of the nationalism were historians. Necessary to construct a common stories. Not by chance, on the formation of the nationalism played crucial role a poet and the authors, a literature in general sense. And in consequence of common knowledges and the common cognition, large area able to behave in the solidarity manner. And the last device making a solidarity with one to other, finding the enemies. Because a self-definition, the easiest version of self-definition, define some person or some community against others. Against others. Therefore, evolution of nationalism is a new, if we are approaching to the nationalism, this is the new technology of state organization. Replace a social status and the age of empire, age of dynasties, based on the common basis of language and common culture. For example, in Eastern Europe, made a lot of conflict. Because in real life, it's not homogenized area. Look at, for example, the story of Yugoslavia, not far from Hungary. After the collapse of last Habsburg prince, it's not a real, but according to behavior, Josip Broz Tito, president of Yugoslavia, this construction of and the unification of Yugoslavian people, it's Albanians, Serbian, Croatian, and any others, it's failed. Everybody would like to be independent. But very interesting, the last census of Yugoslavia, more 10,000 people declare that I am a Yugoslavian. Artificial construction. But appear a new nation, a Yugoslavia. Okay, look at the story. Spatial hierarchy before the national state. Look at what kind of spatial hierarchy had in Europe. Look at the first one. The first one, a marriage district. A marriage district. Why so important, the marriage district? Because the population, for example, one village, is no more than some hundred dwellers, some hundred inhabitants. After some level, no chance for marriage, because it's too close a relation, a familiar relation. Therefore, necessary to move to the neighborhood, to the other village. Why so important? Because it's a successful marriage, necessary the same language, the same religion, and the same custom, for example, in cooking. Because the cooking made a lot of conflict inside of the marriage. Therefore, it's a small area. A small area might be a function like a marriage district. Marriage, one city, one village to other. This is the smallest one, a marriage district. The second one, city and the region. Around each city, there are a region. Somebody visited in the Mars market. It's a local market in Szeged. Everybody. If you visit in the market of Mars Square, you can meet the district of Szeged. The villages around the Szeged, for example, Szöreg, Domaszék, Dorozsma, Öttömös, and the area which seller try to sell vegetables, fruits, meats, and bread, and any other. This is the area and the region of city. Region of city. Sometimes not so easy to define a city, region of city. Why? Because Look at, for example, at the end of 17th century had a crisis, a deep crisis. It's a very bad weather. For example, Seine and the Thames and the Rhine and the Danube frozen over, and the harvest was unbelievable bad. Therefore, in France, in the history of France, under direction of Louis XIV, the King of Sun, necessary to transport staple foods, mainly wheat, from Normandy to Paris. It's very expensive, because transported on coach, on continental routes. And 100 kilogram wheat transport from Normandy to Paris was more than 100 livres. Livres, it was a contemporary currency in France. 100. On the same time, in Amsterdam was a shortage of staple foods, imported rice from Cape Town. You know where located Cape Town? South Africa, Cape Town. And the expense of transporting rice from Cape Town, more 1,000 miles, to Amsterdam was cheaper than transport Normandy to Paris. Why? Because transported via vessels, ships, commercial ships. And it's less expensive. And the price was only 40 livres per 100 kilogram. And if we calculate according to expense of transport, Cape Town much closer to Amsterdam than Normandy to Paris. Therefore, some situation not so easy defined, which is the region and which are not. Wilhelm Abel, a famous German geographical historian, tried to define which are the ideal, traditional cities. And according to Wilhelm Abel, the ideal city in the traditional world calculate and reckon 3,000 dwellers. And the arable land around the city might be 85 square kilometers, which is the meaning of calculation of ideal city. This is a strategy of cognition, because there is an ideal situation and look at the real situation. And we can understand the world if compare ideal and the real appearance of the city. Okay, this is the second level. Marriage district was the first one, and the second one are city and the region. And the third one is a pays, not a real pays, it's a French term, it's a country mean, it's a pays, or the canton, which are using in the Swiss history, and a country, it's mean some 1,000 square kilometer large area, which are the most important indicator of homogeneity of the cantons, or in Hungary it's not so easy. Okay, but it's an English lecture, not necessary to define Hungarian economic unit. It's very important. Generally, a canton organized around a market, a central market. The second one, a cultural identity. A cultural identity. For Hungarian students, for example, in the Hungarian history, there are two cantons, two countries, which practical level is a county, but general name a country. This is, for example, Bihar. It's a change to Hungarian for short term. I mentioned for a student won't understand, but it's not a problem of English knowledge. Is a Hungarian. Hungarian, for example, name a Bihar Ország. Bihar Ország. And the other one is a Somogy. It's a county, but name a country. It's a country somehow, Somogy Ország. It's a larger one. It's a larger one. It's somehow integrated area. For example, in Bihar country, recently it's cut to part, one part Hungary, the other part is Romania. It's a very interesting area, a mountain area, with animal husbandry and the mining of silver, and the market line area, and the last one marshland area. And somehow this area are integrated economic space. It's a cultural identity. For example, I came from Bihar area, and in my identity, it's a very important place. I came from Bihar, not other one, Bihar. Dialect, very interesting, a dialect. If somebody come in Hungary, I don't know which is the situation in other languages, but in Hungary, it's homogenized. If somebody, even the kindergarten or elementary school, it's canceling. For example, I spoke the Bihar dialect during my childhood. I came from a small village, a peasant environment, and everybody spoke a local dialect. And I went to the elementary school, and our teacher told to me I speak like a peasant, and ashamed. And therefore, step by step, it cut down and cancelled my local dialect to the official literature level of language. Therefore, for foreign students, I suggest looking at television of Transylvania. There is on the YouTube you can see, and in Transylvanian area, speaking and saving the dialect, and unbelievable funny. Listening, for example, a discussion, a philosophical discussion with very cruel dialect. Some words I am not able to understand because a local teacher teach the local pupils and no cancelling the dialect. Because if somebody listening something dialect, imagine will tell, for example, a tale or singing a folkloric song, but no. In sometimes homogenized. But for example, I know practical experiences because I am not speaking so well in Dutch, in German, but for example, in Germany, it's very cruel dialect, divide the Saxonian or Bavarian or Prussian. Therefore, not by chance, a German history until the 19th century divided to local principality. Germany unified only in the second half of the 19th century. Therefore, the local dialects survived. To my knowledge, for example, in Russia, no so diversity of dialects because the central power, since the early modern time, unified whole of that. Local dialect and the folklore. Very important to mention, in the traditional time, the cloth, it wasn't a free decision. A cloth defined everything. If somebody approaching on the folk side, you can identify the age, the social status, and the marital status, and the area where come. Everything. Go into the, for example, folklore museum. There is a doll, a faceless doll. If somebody there is some education in the folklore, able to define everything, not necessarily communicate. Look at the clothes. Recently we imagined that our clothes is a free decision. It's not true. Because we are under control of marketing. And if we are looking the clothes of the student, free types. It depends on the price level and it's a general global marketing. And rustic architecture and the formation and the color of building. It's very interesting, Transylvania. For example, a light blue, if somebody painting the building a light blue, came from the eastern part of Transylvania. It's a Székely area. And somehow, not only the construction of the building, but the color of building, able to demonstrate the nationality to identity, national identity. Okay, the third one, the canton, the spatial structure. And the last one are provinces, more 10,000 square kilometers. Majority of history, of European history, look at, for example, Italy. It's separated to Florence and Milan and the city-state of Geneva, Venice. It's a local provinces. a local provinces, until the unification, which happened in the second half of the 19th century, unfolded in the spatial dimension of provinces. This is the same situation as I mentioned in the German history, unfolded in the province size history. Look at, for example, the size of recent Hungary, which is Transdanubia and the Great Hungarian Plain, 93,000 square kilometers. Look at Bavaria, 70,000 square kilometers. This is the province spatial dimension. It's optimal because before the modern technological devices, this is the size with a traditional devices able to direct and managing and serving the logistical background. Political unit, optimum size in the traditional time, and regional first. This is the fourth level, and the last fifth level, a territorial state. And each of territorial state had a core area around organized state. For example, in the case of Portuguese, it's a Lisbon, Tuscany around the Florence, Bavaria around Munich and Regensburg, Castile, Valladolid and Madrid, Sweden around Stockholm, Norway and around Trondheim, or Russia around Moscow. Therefore, each of territorial state had a core area. Around them organized a territorial state. If we are looking at the history of territorial state in the last 2,000 years, we can identify a concentration area and concentration period and deconcentration period. For example, after the collapse of Western Roman Empire, it was a disintegration period. Not by chance named a Dark Age, for two reasons. A Dark Age because no documentary sources, nobody knows which happened, because 1 century there are 10 documentary sources, no more. A little bit help a lot DNA reconstruction and archaeological evidences, but it's no documentary sources, partly Dark Age, and partly because the civilization level after the Roman Empire down. 10th and 13th century, age of integration, age of formation of the Christian state, like happened in Hungary, Poland, Czech Republic, Czechia, or Czech lands, and in consequence of crisis of 14th century, age of this integration, and since the 16th century started the reintegration. And very interesting, recently it's an open question. Which is the way of national states recently? Because if you ask me, for example, 20 years ago, I am sure that over the age of national state and started the integration of for example, Europe on the frame of European Union, but recently I am not sure that it will happen. Okay. If we are looking at trajectory and rivalry between the city-state, which was at Geneva or Venice, and the territorial state, there are a typology of Fernand Braudel. If we are looking at cities, a city typology, Fernand Braudel described the whole of the human history according to 3 types of city. The first type of city, according to Fernand Braudel, was an open city. What means the open city? Open city, like Athens. Athens had 3 core area. 3 area, not core area. 3. Athens, the city. Piraeus, the harbor, the port, and the rural area. If somebody had a citizenship, nobody bother which area living, lodging. The same value of citizenship might be in rural area building, or Piraeus or Athens. Look at one other example. This tradition, open city tradition, followed in the Roman Empire. Probably you know the biblical story with Paul, St. Paul. St. Paul had Roman citizenship. He lived in Jerusalem. The citizenship, the Roman citizenship, was valid everywhere in the Roman Empire, not located to Rome. to the city of Rome. Okay, the second one, a closed or segregated city. A closed city, it's a typical medieval city. A medieval city was an individual soul in the feudal ocean. Majority of territory directed under feudal law and the feudal behavior and the feudal value, except the city. Inside the wall lived a civil society. And not by chance was a lot of general legal declaration that the wall separate the peasant and the citizens, the citizenry. Because inside of the wall, basically different custom, behavior and the legal system function. It's a closed city. It's a cell, individual cell in the feudal world. And finally, the subject or submitted city, when a national state homogenized the country, cancelled the privileges. Everything. Submitted the cities to the legal system, whole of the country. No individual privileges. And if we are approaching to the problem of territorial state and the city-state, according to economic approach, we can separate according to sector of economy. A first sector, industry, as you know, because majority of the students came from faculty of economics. The second one, agriculture, and the first, service. City-state, the strongest one in the service, and the territorial state, the strongest one, agriculture. Not by chance, almost 90% of population working in agriculture. If we are looking, for example, the Hungarian society, after the Second World War, more than half of Hungarian population lived in and work in agriculture. Our grandfather, very high probability, and grandmothers had peasant. Therefore, a Hungarian society, a new modernized society. And it was a general, but a little bit England, a little bit started before the modernization. Okay. It's quite a tricky diagram, demonstrate how many percent of production able to commercialize. If we are looking, for example, this is the Danish economy in the early 19th century, at the turn of 18th or 19th century, population of the Danish population working a little bit less than 50% in agriculture, unskilled work. 1/4 craft and manufacture, it's a little bit more than 10%, other commerce, fishing and shipping. And how many percent of production these sectors able to commercialize, transforming too many? Proportion of agricultural production, it's a very moderate, it's approximately 8 and 10%. Fishing and shipping, much larger, approaching to 20%, and craft and manufacture and the commerce, whole of the production commercialized. Good. First, look at the history of France. Two candidates to the position of Netherlands and Amsterdam. France, territorial state, you remember the basic data, 17 million inhabitants and 500,000 living in the capital. It's very powerful. Other rival, England, 6 million inhabitants and 500,000 in London. It's two rivals. Look at two rivals. We are the strengths and we are the weaknesses of that. France is the first modern nation in political terms, in consequence of French Revolution. French Revolution declared the first national coherence, national solidarity, and reflected the other European nations and make its identity. For example, when the French troops invaded and occupied Spain, reaction was appearance of Spanish identity, Spanish nationalism. Therefore, majority of European nationalism appeared in reflection to the French Revolution and the French invasion, the Napoleonic Wars age. Okay, look at the France. Size of the France changed a lot of times. The smallest one was 300,000 square kilometer, and the largest one recently is 47,000 square kilometer. Historically named a hexagon. It's a historical geographical book baptized France a hexagon because can describe according to geometrical form of hexagon the boundary of France. It's a huge country. If we are looking, and the French historian named France a victim of gigantism, too large country, contemporary technology, no chance for efficient and powerful direction. Which was the reason of victim of gigantism? France won 100 years war against England. Majority of medieval king of England and the dynasty of England came from southern part of France. Therefore, for long term, it was a very complicated feudal relation because the English king directed England. But because his ancestor owned southern part of Anjou, for example, and Provence and Occitan, this area, these provinces, was owner of this area, was under in the feudal hierarchy of the French king. It's very complicated. Feudal society, according to legal system, it's very complicated, who up and down to other. When died out the dynasty in the first third of the 14th century, launched a war for the ownership of southern part of the France and finally to the position of the kingdom, the leading position and the crown of France. It was 100 years war. Basically, England lost the 100 years war because applied a mercenary army, you know, which is necessary to pay for the soldier. And in consequence of 14th century crisis, more than one third of English population died, disappeared. Therefore, the budget of English kingdom is down. No money, no budget for the financing of army in France. Step by step, decreased the prisons in France and lost the war. It's good news for the French kingdom, short term, but long term, this is the first step for the gigantism. Too successful the operation conquering provinces and connecting to France. 100 years war in short term, good news for France, but long term, good news for England. The second one, Habsburg-Valois wars between continental wars. It was equal, but generally won by Valois, but the French Empire. Therefore, the second war, which won, increased the size of the country, step by step, too large. And the French Civil War. A French Civil War started in consequence very successful proliferation of Calvinism between Catholic and the Calvinists. But finally closed a civil war and segregated the Calvinists and after to the end of 17th century the Calvinist community left the country. It's possible, I told the story, one third of Calvinists emigrated to England, the Protestant countries. 1/3 of Huguenots emigrated to Netherlands, not by chance, and 1/3 of emigrants moved to Germany, German principalities and the German countries. And one small market town there arrived to the Huguenot immigrants, started his career. It's built a new Huguenot church, new district, step by step. This small Prussian city, market city, which started to arouse in consequence of Huguenot immigration, named Berlin. And recently, the capital of Germany. It's for judging the meaning of migration is demonstrated well. As I mentioned before, area which left the emigrants, loser, and the area which arrived the immigrants, it's a winner of migration. Moreover, there is a special category of migration. It's a category of global middle class. You know this term, a global middle class? A global middle class means that the global middle class recently, for example, in the modern time, listening the same music and receive the same education, that, for example, travel a middle class family one country to other, no any problem. Because there is a global culture and the middle class everywhere, not only in Hungary, but in Niger, in Egypt, in India, in Indonesia, living in the same global culture. And why interesting for us? Because this global culture somehow existed even in the 17th or 18th century. Huguenots were a typical middle class immigrants. His and her integration is no problem. Speak the same language, well educated, and good taxpayer of the local countries. Okay, French Civil War won, and peaceful solution performed to the end of war and solved the problem. And for solving the problem, formed in the 17th century the absolute state, based to the bureaucracy. And bureaucratized country partly on the size of army and partly on the size of civil bureaucracy. But territory is 30 times larger than Netherlands, 4 times larger than England, 80 times more arable land compared with the Netherlands, population 10 times the Dutch population and 5 times to English population. If we are looking the data, only the pure data, the best chance are to envert to France to winning the leading position. But why wasn't able to conquer the core position by Paris and by France? The first problem, the gigantism, reached the upper limit and over the upper limit of efficient form of the direction. And the positive side of the coin, that France, like in the modern time, in the 20th century, so large, not easy to direct in core area, in the central area from the capital, but so large that not possible to conquering. Like, you know the story on the time of the Napoleon invasion against Russia, or the Second World War invasion of German army. So large that no chance efficiently to conquer. The early modern time Russia, in this point of view, was a France. Very large. Not only not possible direct, but not possible to conquering even. Which are the weaknesses? This is the communication map. How long, how many days possible to communicate, for example, in 1765 or a little bit later at the dawn of French Revolution. At least, for example, in the middle of 18th century, communication
diagram between Paris and Marseille was 12 days and 12 days back, a little bit improved at the dawn of French Revolution, the situation only 8 days. But no chance for efficient communication before the technological innovation. The crucial problem of Paris, somebody visited in France? France. Okay, both of you. How long? 2 years? 2 days. Almost the same. I stayed 1 year in France. My first foreign language is French. Very important peculiarity of French history, there are two capitals. Two capitals. There is a southern capitals and the northern capitals. Like, for example, in the Chinese history, there is a continental capital, a Peking, a Beijing, and a maritime-oriented capital, a Nanking. A little bit same situation. Paris, a political capital. A political capital. Probably you know the story of Versailles, which constructed for the court of royal court, and luxury consummation. I spoke about yet what the meaning of luxury consummation, not so positive. Paris, a political capital and the place of luxury consummation. Lyon, it's a southern part of France. It's a trading center, industrial and the trading center. And the true economic capital, we can shortly define. Lyon, it's rival of Paris. And if one country, a territorial country, there are a rivalry between two capitals, it's a weakening the function of the state. And moreover, the Lyon, which was the powerful economic capital, connected to the Mediterranean Sea. And the Mediterranean economy in the 17th century declined. Therefore, somehow, the economic power of France connected to the declining Mediterranean economy, Mediterranean area. If you are looking economic gravity center, you can identify two core areas rose in the 18th century. Lyon, not by chance, this is the real traditional economic capital of France, and the other one, Rouen, which connected to the Atlantic trade via Atlantic Ocean and Americas and African trade similarly. Therefore, France divided two areas, Atlantic area and the Mediterranean area. And there is a rupture between them. We can define around a river Loire, it's a very famous area, a lot of castle. And south of river didn't speak French. From north, it's French speaker area. And on the early modern time, of course, as I mentioned before, homogenized. This is the rupture, a continental and the Mediterranean area. If we are looking the budget of capitals, Paris and Lyon, Paris, no export, economic export, no import, but the total transaction in consequence of redistribution, it's a gathering of taxes and fees. It's only one item in the budget. Total transaction is Lyon 200 sorry, but when I looking a French text, my vocabulary, it's a French vocabulary come up. More than 200 million livres, and there is a positive balance between them. That its table demonstrates well that economic center only locate to Lyon, and Paris no in any economic activity. Only consummation. No more, only consummation. And if we are looking the geography per capita, how many income, personal income, we can calculate. It's very impressive to look at one map before French Revolution in the late 18th century, and one from the 20th century on the time of a great fossil fuel crisis, and the basic structure is the same. It's past 2 centuries. There is a core area around Paris and Rouen, and other core area around Lyon. Power of northern area, it's increased, of course, on the time of modernization, because Paris has centralized majority of activity and growing industrial activity similarly. But if we are looking at the economic structure and the poverty line of France, basically the same which happened in the 18th century. Okay, very interesting, the literacy. You know which is the literacy? Able to read or write. And indicate, well, in northern part of the France, very high, the literacy. But southern part, it's much worse. Why? Because it indicate the knowledges of French languages. In southern part of France, nobody spoke French languages. A same situation, for example, a situation of minorities. In Hungary or Central Europe, as I mentioned, the population living together in the scattered structure. And in statistical level, the result of education of minorities much lower than the local people. Why? Because if a minority who speaking other languages, walking in the elementary school, the first step necessary to learn foreign languages. I am visiting quite regularly to Transylvania, living together with German, Romanians, and Hungarians. And very interesting, it's a new innovation, which is the common language between Romanian and Hungarian. English. Nobody learn, it's not good direction of development, but no learn the other languages. English is the common level for communication. Good. Okay. And finally, France wasn't able to be a leading power and Paris to be a leading city. Why? Because no enough economic power behind the capital, behind the official political capital, and the economic capital not able to win the leading city position because declined on the side of Mediterranean economy. Okay, look at the other rival, England. English territorial state, England didn't exist in the Middle Ages. Because England in the Middle Ages was one province in the network of French-English provinces area. And combined with, for example, the same under direction of the English king, directed England and directed, for example, Provence and Occitan area. And it was a mixture, it's a mixture, according to feudology. But in consequence of losing of 100 years, separated from the continental area. Look at the geographical location. British Isle, whole of the British Isle, including larger one and a smaller one, British Isle, 245,000 square kilometers. But very important to mention, England, the English kingdom, only 140,000 square kilometers. Tiny, a small area compared with France. No temptation of the gigantism. A small country, moreover, a lot of river navigable. Large coastal area, more river navigable. Therefore, the inner communication, inner trade, very easy to organize. Very easy to organize. And important peculiarity of the English history, a channel. As a French name, La Manche. A channel, it's somehow a wall which separate island, British Isle, from
continental area. And very interesting, in European history, only two nations are who define themselves out of Europe. And when travel to the continent, declare that I going to Europe. The first one are English. Somebody know which other nation, who a European nation, but somehow defined out from Europe?
Ireland.
No? Russia. Very interesting. Two nations, two corners of the European continent. English people, if travel, for example, France, I going to Europe. From Moscow, I am going to Europe. Interesting. It's a cultural history, to my mind, it's the background of that. Somehow defined out. It's a European nation, both, but somehow defined out the category of Europeans. Okay, La Manche, it's an official, somehow it's a shield against any kind of invasion. And Pennine Mountain, but very, very moderate. Highest part of the Pennine Mountain, a little bit more than 1,000 meters. It's a quite moderate landscape, quite moderate, it's peaceful landscape. And as I tried to tell before, but summarize how became England an island. Because geographically it was an island, but the political sense was a mixture of continental provinces and the island provinces. The first one, losing of 100 Years' War, as I mentioned before. The second one, recapture the last headquarter, the last part of the last fort on the continent, which left until the middle of 16th century. Recaptured Calais because it was a headquarter of English prisons in the continent. And very interesting, as I mentioned before, aside from Ferdinand Brodel, England acted a province or a group of provinces within the Anglo-French unit, which was in its entirety. It's summarized, which I tried to tell by Ferdinand Brodel. And the last piece on the puzzle was making independence to the last universal organization, Roman Catholic Church. Declaration of Anglican Reformation, Anglican Church, and who was and who became the leader and the Archbishop or Pope of Anglo-Saxon Anglican Church, a king. And very interesting, if we are looking the model of Anglican Church, a little bit similar to the Orthodoxy. The Orthodox, the Eastern Christian law. Okay. And finally, in consequence of losing the continental connection and declaration of independent church, England became island in geographical and political sense. Okay, we continue in the next week. As I mentioned, switch out the video.